Hello and welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where our intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. You see, there's never been a shortage of Black male role models. There's only been a lack of exposure of those role models. So the intention of this show is to showcase and highlight Black men who are doing amazing things in the world. And so I seek out men who are, again, making a positive impact in the world. And I ran into this brother on Facebook and I said, man, I got to get this guy on the show because he's into science and chemistry and some things that I'm really interested in. So I said, okay, he's a good candidate. I reached out to him and guess what? Here he is. So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Sean Patterson to the show. Sean, how you doing this evening, sir?
I'm great. What about yourself?
Oh man, excited to have this conversation with you because as mentioned, there's a lot of negativity going around right now about Black men. And we all know the challenges and they're very real. But I believe that it's in conversations like this that we can change our inner narratives about ourselves so that we don't buy into the external narrative driven by the media. So welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes because you are definitely shattering stereotypes. So we're going to be talking about your academy, the Sean Patterson Academy. But before we do, I want to start off with a few icebreaker questions. So first of all, tell us a little bit about where you're from and share a little bit about what it was like growing up for you.
Awesome. So I am from Snellville, Georgia. I attended Shiloh High School. And growing up, I was involved in a lot of different activities. Junior achievement. I did theater. I grew up breakdancing, which is an informal activity, not through any specific program, just one human in the neighborhood. My friend Dimitar Baev was like, hey man, you want to learn how to breakdance? I was like, yeah. And so we just practiced for a couple of years, started playing tennis, did theater. I did dual enrollment. So I graduated with high school with actually 30 credits of college credit before I went to my post-secondary institution, which is Elon University. And from there, I just graduated from there. And the main focus of the institution is really experiential learning. And so it's really nice growing up there. And I mean, growing up in Snellville, in Gwinnett, where where a group of people is just so diverse, being involved with different activities, and basically just exposing myself to different areas of life and meeting new people. So it was great.
Nice. Now, what part of Georgia, where is that located?
North Atlanta.
Okay. Okay. Give me a reference point. I never heard of that city, so give us a little reference. Or is that?
Gwinnett County, which is about 40 minutes north of downtown Atlanta.
Got it. All right. So now, name a woman who has inspired you to be who you are.
I would say my mom, because she has a PhD and I'm looking to get a PhD too. She's an educator also. And she works so hard. Like she really loves what she does. And she works really hard and really tactfully and strategically, not because she's being forced to, but just because she genuinely loves what she does. And I aspire to be that way too.
Nice. Now, so name a man that you look up to and admire.
I would say my dad, because that's how I got in. He's really helped me learn coding and computer programming. He does computer programming, and he's been doing it ever since, for the last like 25 years, 27 years. And I'm just like, wow, it's just really, once I never really understood the profoundness of this skill set until I started learning it. And I was like, that really made me appreciate him more for not only the difficulty and the technical side, but also the creative side. excuse me, behind coding. So it's really inspiring.
Nice, nice. So name a book that you love and tell me why you love it.
I would say the book, my my favorite book next to the Bible is The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And the premise of that book is that simple decisions compounded over a long period of time add up to dramatic results. And these results are positive or negative. And so your philosophy becomes your thoughts, becomes your actions, becomes your results, and becomes your life. And so whether you recognize it or not, your actions are compounding over time, and people are doing oftentimes the right things. They're going to work, they're eating, they're they're exercising, but oftentimes, I mean, sometimes it's just like not. It's just like what you're eating and how you're exercising and how you're working, and so all these decisions add up to dramatic results, and which impact your life. That's the premise
Nice,
of the book.
nice. Now, if you love movies, or if you like movies, name one of your favorite movies.
I have two favorite movies actually. I've got Better Luck Tomorrow, and Better Luck Tomorrow is about just a group of Asian American kids growing up in California, and they just get into they become rebellious, and one of the characters in the play is actually a character in Tokyo Drift, and so the character from Tokyo Drift, not many people realize is actually a character from Better Luck Tomorrow, and the director of Better Luck Tomorrow is the director of Tokyo Drift. So he decided to integrate that character into Tokyo Drift, which is cool. And then my other favorite movie is Alfie, which is just
Alfie.
about a limo driver,
Yeah.
womanizer, and just it's kind of like a stream of conscious thing. But from what I understand, it was a very a profound historical movie, and because Michael Caine was an unknown actor at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what really gave him his big break.
Nice, nice. Now, if I gave you a magic wand, and with this magic wand, you could create anything your heart desires, what would your life look like 10 years from now?
My life would look like me being an Olympic champion and breakdancing and tennis. I play tennis also, and I would have a PhD in polymer chemistry. So I'll just be doing a lot of research, and I would combine that with computer programming for space exploration.
Nice, nice.
So
So
it'd be an astronaut.
there you go. So there are some people who are pessimistic about the future while others are optimistic. So where do
Yeah,
you fall on the spectrum between optimism and pessimism for the future in general?
I'm honestly a extremely optimistic person. I think all my friends who know me say, "Oh yeah, Sean's always a pretty happy human being," and I think there's a dab of realism that needs to go with the optimism. And that's where that book, The Slight Edge, comes in, because I know that things do not happen overnight. I know things do take long periods of consistent effort, and so I'm often optimistic. And I just uh, I take in information from a lot of different sources and a lot of different people who specialize in different professions. And so Gary Vaynerchuk often says to act with micro hustle and macro patience, meaning you work very, very hard. And then in the long run, it's just important to understand that your results are going to take time, which is congruent with the Slight Edge. So
Nice. So now I'd like you to introduce Sean the professional. So tell the audience what you do.
awesome. So I'm Sean Patterson. I'm a educator, and I would say I'm also a mentor, because it's not about, not as the mediums through which we're teaching are practical and they're intended to solve real world problems. However, it's intended to develop the person as a whole. And so I really seek to meet students where they're at, developmentally, intellectually. And granted, this is informal. I have never taught in the school system as a teacher per se. I've just uh, I just feel like I relate to people very well. I have a high emotional intelligence, and so I just leverage that into my technical ability as a chemist, whereby I've worked in science education at a education company. I've done worked in industry for a bit. I did a little bit of research too, and so I just combined those two: my love of people and my technical skills, and we got Patterson Academy Inc. Let's go.
There you go. So we're going to talk a little bit about Patterson Academy in just a moment.
Awesome.
But I wanted to just kind of touch base with something because obviously there's a lot of racial tension right now. And my
Right.
first question is for you as a man who happens to be Black, how are you holding up with all this that's going on?
It's it's very it's definitely stressful, and it's actually very ubiquitous. You see it on because we are in a pandemic right now. A lot of people forget we're in a pandemic, and so not only are you dealing with these racial tensions, you're dealing with the fact that generally speaking, you should be following social distancing rules, and so you have a lot of time to think about it, and you ask yourself. I mean, I'm asking myself like, what can I do? And although I went to a form of a protest today, I really think the answer is education. And so I've really just tripled down on my efforts to get this thing launched and get our youth, the next generation of young scholars educated, while making sure Black males are being served. And um, that's my response to these racial tensions, because I think that not only do we need protesting in the streets, I think we need policy and legislation that supports local needs, and there needs to be initiative that supports solutions and not only proliferation of identification of these problems that persist.
Absolutely. Now, my latest book is titled The Cure for Onlyness, A Black Man's Guide to Joy, Passion, and Purpose. And the book addresses the feeling of what's called onlyness that we as Black men sometimes experience when we are in environments without any other people of color. So I'm curious, have you
Mm.
ever had that experience and that feeling? And how did you deal with it?
Um, I haven't felt like actually, yeah, actually I have, because the thing is, as I was I went to Shiloh High School, which is predominantly Black, and then I flipped a coin and landed on Elon, which is a predominantly white institution, Elon University. And I thought that transition from high school to college was great. I thought it was a great experience, just being in different environments. And however, as I transitioned to my professional world, I noticed I was like, oh, why am I the only Black male here? You know what I'm saying? Like I was like, what? Like I was like, my first job, I was like, all right, cool. Um, because it was still in Elon, North Carolina, and then I was like, all right, I kept on working these jobs. I was like, well, there are really not many Black male scientists in chemistry. So I was like, all right, we gotta just do something about this. And one of my colleagues told me about this initiative, Hip Hop Ed. I do hip hop as a hobby. I'm really avid into it, and so it basically combines hip hop and science with rap. And I was like, since breakdancing is a element of hip hop, I was like, I thought to myself, why not combine break dancing with chemistry instead of rap, where you can develop your physical prowess, because there is the obesity issue in America. So, got to be original. But
So,
I have felt the feeling of loneliness, and that's how I chose to respond through education.
nice. So let's talk about the Sean Patterson Academy. So this is obviously a dream that you have that you're putting together, and tell us a little bit about how it would be structured. Tell us about the academy. What would it be doing on a day-to-day basis? Bringing in kids from the inner cities, or what's it all about?
Okay, so it's about I at this juncture, it's about customizing and really getting a sense of meeting humans and meeting the students on an individual level. Because with our programming, we do feel like we got something for everybody. It's great. It's amazing. And so um at this juncture, we're just customizing and really meeting students at their interests, because at the end of the day, everything's a science. Chemistry is everything, whether people realize it or not. And and we're often finding that people are doing science without them even realizing it. And science can aid students who normally would not be interested in science by integrating and talking about scientific topics uh, with their activities and hobbies that they enjoy. And so and so and so at this juncture, we're just basically getting a feel for who we can get engaged, and we're just building a network. We got a couple of clients at this juncture, and we're looking to expand. But we do have a curriculum outline for our first program, and it combines breakdancing, chemistry, and computer programming, specifically web development. And basically, the premise is there are over 1 million unfilled jobs that can be worked remotely. And these jobs are, when you think remote jobs, you think sedentary, right? And so why not also equip a student with the outlet to stay in shape, which will tackles and which prevents obesity, while also applying chemistry in a biochemical context to to understand internal mechanisms and eat and or understand the chemistry of nutrition, basically, and also leverage the polymer chemistry derivative of organic chemistry to give them the ability to create things and uh, create services, which is historically what polymer chemistry has done. It transformed fundamentally the ability for anybody to generate wealth, which was formerly uh, which was formerly based on land ownership, and polymer chemistry transformed that to the ability to uh, create products and services.
Got it.
So it's a handful.
So the academy itself. So I'm
Mm.
I'm I'm just kind of picturing in my mind. So in a best case scenario, would you have like a charter school that kids would come to, or what's the big dream for the academy?
The big dream is definitely a charter school of some sort, and uh, right now we're just doing the online thing, given the pandemic situation. The big dream is a charter school, and it really just focuses on interdisciplinary approaches to solving real world problems. And so conceptually and technically in congruence with science, students will have the resources, the the expert professional teachers to help, and the the physical structure of the school would be conducive to creating and combining art and science, whereby art shows you and science tells you. So we just want to create great environments for our students.
Nice, nice. Well, I've got something I'll show you a little bit later that I think is going to really blow you away because I've been working on something similar for about 25 years now. It's starting to kind of pick up some steam and momentum. And I also believe that everything happens for a reason, and you meet people for certain things. And I'm a firm believer in what some people might call the law of attraction. Whereas
Mm,
when you set something in motion, all these synchronistic events start to happening, and the right people kind of show up, and opportunities kind of show up. And the fact that you and I have met, I don't think is an accident. So I'll share that with you a little bit later. So um, in terms of your academy, you sent to me 4 papers, kind of overdrafts, kind of, I guess, part of your curriculum. And I thought it was
yeah,
kind of interesting because one of the things you talk about was the significance of personal development.
right,
And so it is my belief and contention that, especially in the Black community, we must make the investment in our youth's potential. And the way to do
right,
that is through personal development type programs. Now, personal development type programs covers a gamut, but what I know as a result of 25 years of my own research is one of the things that we don't really talk about in the Black community is the importance of emotional awareness. And you mentioned emotional intelligence earlier. But a lot of times, what we don't talk openly about, is emotional intelligence, emotional awareness. And one of the things that my work really covers, especially with men and males, is that we live in a society, in a culture that has conditioned us to believe that as men, as boys, we aren't supposed to feel. So we start suppressing and repressing our emotions at a very early age. And what that does is it
right,
hampers our development in a lot of ways because we may have the intellect, but if we don't have the heart and the emotions and the emotional intelligence, it's difficult to navigate through this thing called life. So, from your perspective, when you
right.
talk about personal development, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about personal development in the culture, in the context of physical health, mental health, cultural health, financial health, and relationship health. And so I guess relationship health does coincide with the emotional aspect that you're talking about. I think that the mental health does as well. So those are just the main categories that I was describing in with the personal development. And I just think that it's important to have outlets where they can be measured. And so I mentioned that I mentioned the businessman Gary Vaynerchuk earlier. So I also follow another influencer or another businessman, and he's kind of old. He's from the old school. He's like 70 years old, something like that. And he's basically like, hey, you can't measure personal development. And so I thought to myself, I was like, okay. And so I was like, okay, how can I like have a quantifiable measurement of personal development? And so practical mediums through personal development, where breaking is the physical, like I said before, chemistry and coding are the mental, and coding and breaking are also creative. That you can also be creative with your synthetic sequences of chemistry. So just did my best to really contextualize and program the personal development, the practical mediums that can be measured.
So, within your curriculum, um,
Yes.
how are you measuring, or how would you measure success? How would you measure that? Say, for example, someone comes into your program and they're doing whatever your curriculum says they do. How do you quantify that? How do you measure that?
Well, I think you quantify with accuracy, obviously, with uh I'm looking think of the term. It's basically where you're not just regurgitating, but you're thinking critically. And so uh you basically just give them, I would just say give them, like, you just give the students problems to solve, and can they recount the information after a certain amount of time with accuracy, and can they also expand on concepts that are measured in congruence with professionals of certain amounts of years in these disciplines. And so with the research that was done, but this, what this is based off of is based on Ivy League research, with the rap, using hip hop to teach science and STEM. Studies were showing that students were integrating as much science in their raps as PhD students were able to. And so, and these are students at a secondary educational level. And so that's a good metric, because of someone who's a PhD student who has the ability to produce goods and services, or we're talking about a capitalist society, and produce goods and services at a scale, a certain scale that the market values, then uh, proportionally, how does that compare for the student that is taking your program?
Now, I'm a firm believer of the importance of, especially young Black males, having Black male teachers
Yes,
to,
yes,
I'll use the term role model, but that's not really accurate. I think males need to have connections with other males, and
mm,
having males that look like them or look like you creates an intimacy and a connection that sometimes doesn't occur if your educator is of a different ethnicity, especially
right,
in a situation like we have right now with race relations being what they are. Because in learning and education, I think one of the things we don't really talk about is just the basic human emotion of trust. Because if your teacher
right,
happens to be white, as an example, and your parents are at home seeing white people kill Black people, well, that conversation is probably going to be a little negative towards white people. So how can you expect that child to really trust that teacher based on the home environment that he comes from? And so again, I'm an optimist,
so
and I get excited when I see people like yourself that are actually becoming educators, because I think that's what we really need. So, in your own words, just kind of
yes.
speak to, number one, why you've chosen to be an educator and how important it is to you to, as a Black man, be an educator.
Okay, so as mentioned earlier, I attended a predominantly white institution, and it is what it is. I don't really have any qualms about that. We would have panels where we would talk about race relations and tensions in America, and the panelists would always say that education is the answer. And I thought to my, and I, I'm 19, 20, like 21 at this time, and I thought to myself, what are these people talking about? Like what, how is this, because 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 the thing is, you mentioned how do I know the teacher if the teacher's lying to me about this, if the person if the if the teachers or the educators a different race than me. Well, with science, you have instruments that quantify and verify the accuracy of the concepts. And so I genuinely always knew that teacher wasn't lying because the instrument was like, yeah, this is it. And so even, I mean, there are times where I'd be skeptical, of course, but keep in mind I was only one of 6 chemistry majors in my graduating class. It's a communication school primarily, and so I had a different outlook than other students, the other Black students at Elon. I feel like. However, as I grew older and worked at a science education company, really opened my eyes to see education is really cool. Um, I had coached tennis through Elon, and I had volunteered at Cummings High School as a tutor, and just being a tutor really opened my eyes, and the cliche as it sounds, the aha moments really are what makes it rewarding, and also just challenging yourself as an educator to think critically and say, okay, I've got the concept. Technically, how could I make it artistic or culturally relevant to what the student is can relate to and is already doing. And so I like the challenges, the creativity, and the critical thinking aspects of educate as being an educator.
Yeah, and that's so, so critical. Now, one of the things that I don't think we talk enough about is this whole idea of peer pressure and fitting in with young Black men.
Mm,
And I'll share my own experience as a Black kid. When I was 6 years old, I was separated from my mom and I go stay with my grandparents. Okay. So
mm,
from 6 to 13, I was away from my mom, living with my grandparents. Well, during those 7 years, I was a straight A student. I
mm,
loved going to school. When I was 13, I moved back with my mom. Now, during those 7 years when I was really doing well in school, I was all alone. I didn't have any real friends. We were extremely poor. I mean, it was an abusive situation. It was really awful. But my saving grace was my school and my teacher. I had a teacher named Miss Bussey. I'll never forget Miss Bussey. Um, Beautiful, warm white woman who just would actually hug me. And she knew about all the violence that was going on at home because, she actually had to call CPS a couple of times because I had bruises and so forth and so on. So anyway, that was what I called my 7 years of hell. But during those 7 years, I mean, like I said, I was a straight A student.
nice,
Now, when I moved back with my mom, for the first time, I started to have friends.
nice.
And we were all, my 3 closest friends, we all had a couple of things in common. Number one, there was no father in the household.
Mm,
And again, we were in some government housing. And so we
mm,
created a bond, you know, me and these other 3 guys, and we were just like tight, right? Well, the other 3 guys weren't really into school. And so
mm,
for me, and the term we use is I dumbed down in order to fit in
mm,
with my friends.
right,
I started skipping school and because it was more important for me to have friends and to feel connected than it was to go to school. And so I think one of the things we don't talk about enough is the importance of, number one, making it okay for Black males to know that being smart is cool.
right. It definitely is
and
cool.
and to not buy into the media generated rap mentality of,
Right.
you know, the way they talk, and you know what I mean by that. So I'm just curious in terms from your perspective is with young Black kids, how do we make sure that they don't dumb down for fear of being rejected by their peers? You get that?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's something that I don't think we really talk about, but I think we really need to discuss. Excuse me, discuss that because as children, the primary thing because we're social creatures as human beings. We need social interactions and connections, and it is my belief that the only reason anyone joins a gang, I don't care what color they are, the only reason people join gangs is because they're trying to find a surrogate family because they're not getting the nurturing and support at home. So they
Right.
outside of the home to create connection because they don't have it, they don't feel that at home. So one of the things I think all programs need to implement are processes in which the child feels that connection, being a part of something, where they know that the people that they can trust, they can confide in, they can be honest and real with. And we very seldom talk about that in the Black community. And my program, which I've developed, the curriculum around, actually addresses that issue. Because we have to acknowledge that environment sets the context for how we feel about ourselves. I mean, that's really,
Right.
you come from a violent situation, environment, then that's kind of what you're going to do. That's how you're going to express. But when you can give a child an opportunity to move into an environment where they see something other than what they may be accustomed to, then you can change their behaviors. And so that's where the emotional piece comes in because I, as a child, craved friendship because I didn't have friends. My grandmother, my caregivers were violent, angry, and rageaholics and alcoholics. So how could I, as a child, feel cared for and nurtured? Well, again, my escape was going to school and learning. So what do you think about, and have you thought about when you're thinking about your academy, the importance of making sure that your kids know that it's okay to be smart?
Yes. Um, in terms of understanding if it's okay to be smart, I do want to say that I genuinely believe that that intelligence comes in many different forms. So like there's physical intelligence, emotional intelligence, what we call street smarts, which is gained from, in my experience, like traveling across different states, different countries, so on and so forth. There's also book smart. And so I think because these three disciplines do have an like international component to them, whereas hip hop is the number one genre of music all across the world. Breakdancing's all across the world. Chemists are constantly communicating information among different universities across the world. Um, Computer programming obviously gave rise to the internet, and it's called the World Wide Web. By definition, it's worldwide. And so I think it's in terms of promoting like being smart, it's just a matter of just like having a good network and basically basically I would say like you said, how do you make smart cool? So how do you make smart cool? I think because the the stuff we're teaching is so popular already. It's just a matter of making it relating to where you're at. And so for example, I had a conversation where I was talking to a student today. He's like, oh, he's, you know, he definitely fit in the black male stereotype. What I said, what do you want? I was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Rapper or basketball player? I said, that's cool. How often you practicing? The first question, I said, how have you practicing? I was like, have you heard of the Magnus effect? He's like, what's the Magnus effect? I was like, Magnus effect is when you shoot the basketball, you shoot the basketball with backspin, right? He's like, I shoot the ball with backspin. I say, okay. So you know the ball's creating a force around itself, and when it translates in the air, that backspin is creating a force around the ball, around the axis of the ball, and it's bringing it down into the net, right? I said, you know that, right? And I said, I don't know that. And I didn't know that at all. I said, well, now I was like, okay, so like. And so I was like, okay, are you eating complex carbohydrates or eating simple carbohydrates? He's like, I'm eating vegetables. I was like, that's complex carbohydrates. He's like, sometimes I eat cheese. I was like, that's simple carbohydrates. And so I was like, how often are you eating that stuff? You know, so basically I just went down the rabbit hole with that. And so I was like, hey, if you want to go be a basketball player, like, because he was a tall dude. He was a tall guy. So he's the 13. He's taller than me. I'm 5'11". He's about 6'1". So I was like, you know, if you really, I mean, I'm not gonna like lie to a student and say like you can go to the league. I was like, dude, like you really could go to the league. If you're 13, 6'1", you probably could. But what's gonna separate you from the pack? Because it's not only skills at this juncture in 2020. It's about branding yourself as an athlete. I said, oh, are you well behaved? Like, do coaches like you? Or do your teachers like you? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you performing well in school? Like, can you get references from your teachers? So I really approached it from a holistic perspective. I really do my best to meet students where they're at while still maintaining that like I'm an adult and I like, you know what I'm saying? Not trying to be too cool, but understanding that there are aspects that you don't know of that you might not have been exposed to that can actually help you with what you perceive that you want to be, and then use that as a bridge to explore other opportunities.
Yeah.
Once you gain a peripheral understanding of these concepts.
Yeah. And so here's a simple solution to making it cool to be smart. People like you. When young men see people like yourself who are modeling what it's like to be intelligent, to be, to be educated, to see, it gives them something to aspire to. We again just need more exposure of people like yourself to the young men to see what's possible for them. I remember when my son was playing basketball, he had dreams of being in the NBA, and I said, great. I said, having dreams of being in it is fantastic. It's wonderful. And he was actually very good. But the one thing I taught him at a very early age, I said, you have to have a contingency. I remember teaching him the word contingency. I said, so what are you going to do if you break your leg and you can't play? What's next? What do you fall back on? So I taught him that at a very early age, the importance of having that contingency plan in case things don't work out. Now, another way to, again, encourage kids to be cool, and you've touched upon this, is do things that they can relate to. So, with that being said, you've mentioned breakdancing, and dancing is something that most kids can relate to. So what we're going to do is we're going to share something that people can relate to. Let's see here. Oh. All right. Here we go. Who is this guy? I don't know. What in the world? Let's see. Where did it go? There we go. All right, watch this. Get back to the rig, get some up like go. Ready, say go, gotta be a rough flow, no flinch, don't catch him in the end zone. Scratch that box, that line, back that rip it up slow like Delaware syndrome. Now I'll bring it back, let me get it one time. Cold shit, better get it when it's still hot. The boy, that tipping over, spilling with a flow like a jack in a box. No jacks in a box, no pop, I'm missing. This shit got the face paint to give up that image, pulling on face, better listen. Everything ain't gold, don't glisten. This I love that. Now, again, something that youth can relate to, something that's fun and enjoyable, and it's a hook to get them involved and engaged in learning. And so how you're taking your knowledge with the things that they relate to, that's how you get kids to transform their minds and to see themselves differently. So again, I think you are right on target, man. This is what we need more than anything in our community is young Black men like yourself who are out there making a difference in the world, who have visions and dreams of impacting the world positively. And so that's why I'm so honored to have you on Shatter the Stereotype. So with that being said, as we wind down, I want to, number one, give you an opportunity to share any final thoughts that you might have. Now, first of all, before you should do that though, have you put together a website yet?
I'm actually coding it by hand. It will be up by this Saturday.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll actually post a link below this video on the podcast site so people will have access to it. But what's the email, the web address name is going to be? Have you picked domain name? Academy. I'm sorry?
PattersonAcademyInc.com.
Okay. So again, I'll put a link underneath this video so that as people come to it, they'll be able to click to the link, and when you're ready, you'll have that set up. So with that being said, I just want you to share your final thoughts out there for all the brothers who may be watching this, and whatever comes to mind for you in terms of, again, we're shattering stereotypes, we're empowering Black men to live extraordinary lives. So what are your closing thoughts?
I just want to give a message to the young Black males out there. You know what? I just want to let you know that I'm 27 years old. Sometimes it might not seem that the people from my generation are here for you, but you know we really do our best to make sure you all get good guidance, and that's what I am here as an educator for you to do. And I'm also here as a friend. You know, I'm also here as a human first. I can definitely relate to things that you're going through. The pressures that you're going through, I've had the same pressures. The desires that you guys have, I've had the desires. I used to want to go to the NBA, and then I found out I was only going to be 5'11", so that was never going to happen. I found out about genetics, it's science. I was just like, dude, like this is not going to happen. And so, I mean, this is what it is. And so, you know, I just want to say that. So, I mean, for some of us, given the history of our country and the breakdown of your situation, it might not be great. And I was fortunate to be lucky enough to have role models who were honestly in my life to uplift me consistently throughout my K through 12 experience. I was also blessed to have exposure. That's what I'm here for you all to do. I generally think I know a good amount. I know a lot about a lot, and it's because of these exposures to the stuff that I'm about to teach you in this program. And so I genuinely just want to let you know that I'm here for you. Good guys like Michael Taylor are here for you. And I think that I definitely just want to do my part to reach out and be consistent with my reach out, because I know like sometimes it's intimidating for a kid to go into an adult and say, hey, like, I need help about this. But I just want to let you guys know I'm here for you. You can contact me at pessimistic@gmail.com about anything. If you ever just want to talk, if you have a question about science, I'll answer. So
give them that email address again.
Patterson, PATTERSON ACADEMYINC@gmail.com.
There you go. Quick link. Sean's gonna hook you up. Need some support.
Yes, sir.
Well, Sean, again, you are another one of the reasons why I'm so optimistic about the future. When I see brothers like yourself, man, who are out there doing amazing things and empowering youth and educating, it lights me up. Because again, this is what it's going to take for us to change and transform the world. And again, I'm an optimist, and I am just thrilled to death when I meet people like yourself. So I just want to say thank you, man, for spending an hour with us on Shatter the Stereotypes, because you are definitely shattering the stereotypes and making a positive impact in the world. So thank you so much for what you're contributing to the world. We appreciate you, man. We love you. And again, thanks for being on the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
And with that being said, this is another episode of Shatter the Stereotypes. And as always, be optimistic. Yes, there are a lot of things that are wrong, but there are a lot more things that are right with the world. So choose to focus your attention on that which is right. And I can assure you, more things that are right will show up in your life. In the meantime, take care. We'll see you next episode.